56 teams to go. My road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. And we're moving on to the Tulane Green Wave. And this was a pretty interesting team last year because if you watch this team last year, they definitely played better than what their record was at times, especially in the Week 1 game against Oklahoma. But they kind of made that game close against Oklahoma. Not a lot of people giving them a shot. Oklahoma was a team a lot of people picked to win the national title last year. Tulane went out. They were competitive, probably could have won the game, and then lost the game, and from there on it was all downhill. But Tulane got a lot coming back for it, got a lot working in its favor. So can the Green Wave find their way into a bowl game in 2022, or are they going to have another rough time of things this upcoming season? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm doing your favorite team. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. For fans of the Tulane Green Wave out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot more than me. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, anything of the sort, leave it in the comment section down below. I'll be happy to hear what you guys have to say. Tulane in 2022 is my 7th ranked team in the American Athletic Conference. And although their record last year might not be indicative of the 7th ranked team, I'll show you why here in a minute that I have them at this position that I do. Tulane, I feel like is going to be a solid team this year. Last year, though, only 2-10, 1-7 in conference. Taking a look at the stats, they weren't the best. 386 yards with around 28 points per game offensively, and defensively allowed almost 430 yards per game with 34 points per game. So there's definitely a lot of things that you want to clean up here at Tulane this season, but there is a lot of talent here on this team. There's a lot of talent working for this Tulane team. They're in the top 30, I believe, in returning production numbers, and they have some nice transfers coming in as well that I'll talk about here in a little bit. But I got to talk about the talent that is leaving first. If you'll notice, there's not a lot leaving on the offensive end, and if I miss some names, again, Green Wave fans, let me know in the comment section below some names that I missed. But running back Devin Brumfield is gone. Wasn't really super involved in the offense last year. Only 14 carries for 97 yards. I mean, solid solid yard per carry average, but I mean, Devin Brumfield, just not a guy that was super involved with Tulane last year, and a guy that is now no longer on the roster. Jatavian Tolles, a wide receiver, he is gone there as well. Was your 3rd leading target last year, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns a season ago. So Tolles, you lose him at the wide receiver position, and you lose Will Wallace off the tight end position. He had 14 catches, 179 yards, 3 touchdowns. So a couple of 3 touchdown guys are gone, but that's not super surprising considering when you look at the Tulane Green Wave, when you look at the Green Wave stat page from last year, there were a lot of guys that had over 100 yards and some touchdowns a season ago. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. On the defensive end, you lose Jeffrey Johnson, Joseph Dorcius, Noah Seiden, guys that I believe each had more than 2 sacks. Jeffrey Johnson had 2.5. Jojo Dorcius had 4.5, and then Noah Seiden had 3.5. So you lose those guys off your defensive line. Off the linebacking group, you lose Kevin Henry, Marvin Moody, a couple guys there that were pretty good for you last season. Kevin Henry had 52 tackles. Marvin Moody had 39, along with a sack and a half. Kevin Henry also 2 picks, with 1 pick six there as well. And then you also lose defensive back Jalen Monroe, who was really good for this team a season ago. 48 tackles and 12 passes defended. So you lose his production off this team. But we got to focus on what Tulane has coming back because, of course, that's the talent that's going to be on the field for them this year. Quarterback Michael Pratt is coming back. He had 2,381 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions a season ago for this Tulane team. He was pretty solid for this Tulane team. I have a feeling, though, that Michael Pratt, if he is able to step up his game in some ways, I think Michael Pratt can have a season over 3,000 yards passing. Now, that might seem a little bit of a stretch to some of you, but I believe in Michael Pratt. Had 2,381 yards, 21 touchdowns, 8 interceptions a season ago. Was the team's 3rd leading rusher, had 5 rushing touchdowns. Michael Pratt has also got a good group of wide receivers. Shea Wyatt is coming back. He was the 2nd leading target, had 376 yards, 3 touchdowns. Deuce Watts and Fat Watts, the brothers, are coming back. Oh, and Deuce should be D-U-E. My apologies. 331 yards, 3 touchdowns. Fat Watts, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. A guy that's not here is Jaquan Jackson. They have him coming back as well. 294 yards and a touchdown. And then they have a transfer coming in Lawrence Keys over from Notre Dame. That's a huge pickup for the Green Wave, as well as Tyreek James coming back at the tight end position. 429 yards, 4 touchdowns, was the leading receiver a season ago. When you take a look at running backs, Tajay Spears is coming back. If you want an outside chance of the 1,000-yard rusher, I think he can be your guy. 863 yards and 9 touchdowns a season ago on 129 carries. And on 111 carries, had 516 yards, 3 touchdowns, was Cameron Carroll. You'll have him back there as well. Defensive line, Adonis Furlow. Patrick Jenkins is a transfer coming in, but Furlow coming back for this team. Had a sack and a half a season ago. You get back Darius Hodges, who was your sack leader last year, had 5 of them. Played really good football for this team a season ago. Also, Dorian Williams, Nick Anderson, 2 of your top 3 tacklers from a season ago. And speaking of which, you have your top tackler back. Macon Clark had 73 tackles, 4 interceptions a season ago. You get his production coming back. And a couple transfers coming in as well. Jarius Monroe, Lumi Young, couple guys coming in. And you get Jaden Kennedy back as well at the nickelback position. So there's a lot working for this Tulane team. There's a lot of talent here, offensively, defensively. This should be a pretty solid team in 2022 as we take a look at the Tulane schedule. Non-conference wise, you got to play a home game against UMass. The only thing with UMass and the only thing that can really make them dangerous, in my opinion, is 2022 is that rushing attack of Ellis Merriweather. Was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. Tulane defensively gave up only 158 yards per game on the ground, so not great, but not downright horrible either. Yeah, you want to see that number go down. So Ellis Merriweather, if he has a big game, Tulane's got to watch out, but shouldn't worry too much about that one. Otherwise, Alcorn State, same thing. Shouldn't really worry too much about that one. At home against Southern Miss, well, that could be a pretty solid team this year. So Southern Miss, of course, joining a new conference in the Sun Belt, so we'll see what happens there. But then the big one for Tulane, on the road against Kansas State. Kansas State figures to be a much improved team this year. They have Adrian Martinez coming in, one of the best running backs in Deuce Vaughn. That's going to be a tricky game there for Tulane. When you get into conference play, you got road games against Houston, South Florida, Tulsa, and Cincinnati, and you play games at home against East Carolina, Memphis, UCF, and SMU. So let's dive on into this Tulane schedule a little bit more. The non-conference game that interests me is that Kansas State game, right? Adrian Martinez is coming over from Nebraska. Kind of his job this year to flip his own script, kind of see what works, what doesn't for Adrian Martinez at Kansas State. Again, that was a player that for his time at Nebraska was kind of seen as a guy that would lose games. Now, not trying to throw shade on Adrian Martinez, but definitely has to flip that narrative. And I think he can at a program like Kansas State. Again, Deuce Vaughn is one of the most exciting players in the nation. They've added some transfers to that group as well. That's going to be a pretty solid Kansas State team this year. Going on the road, this Tulane team can be dangerous, and they proved that against Oklahoma last year, a much better football team than Kansas State probably will be this year, although that has remained to be seen. But Tulane maybe could pull off a sneaky one there, but they got to be careful against Kansas State. That is definitely a dangerous game. Speaking of dangerous games, Houston, Cincinnati. Again, I keep talking about these two teams throughout my first couple previews here in the American Athletic. It's because those two teams very well could end up being your conference championship game. I mean, Houston, Cincinnati, those are two teams right there that played in the American Athletic Championship game last year. And heck, one of them made the playoff. That was Cincinnati. But otherwise, when you look at this schedule, some other road games here, USF, Tulsa, 2 very winnable road games there. And then Tulane has a lot of chances at home to surprise some people. Now, all the games they play at home are teams that are above them in my power rankings, aka I haven't done a preview for them yet. East Carolina, a team that's going to fight. Memphis, that can be a sneaky team this year. UCF, much the same thing. They're losing Dylan Gabriel, Jalen Robinson, but a lot of talent still there. SMU, yeah, they're losing head coach Sonny Dykes, but there's still a lot of talent there as well. Tulane, going to have a chance to pull off a couple upsets at home in 2022. I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook, tell me predict a team's record. So if the game is in red, I just don't see you winning the game. Notice there are none for this Tulane team. Game in orange, I probably don't see you winning the game, but hey, it's college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but you got to watch out for the team on the other side of the ball, and games in green are games that I just have you win. And so should be able to beat Alcorn State there. UMass and Southern Miss, two teams that you got to watch out for, but Tulane gets them at home, and figure that they should be able to win both of those games there. Again, it's the interesting non-conference game that's jumping out at you, right? The game on the road against Kansas State. That figures to be a much improved team, a team that can go ahead and win 8, 9, 10 games this season. It's a Kansas State team that has that real possibility of getting a lot better. Now, this is the Tulane team that is probably going to be better than their record a year ago. Probably might come into this matchup 2-0. And remember what they did against Oklahoma a season ago? They're going to look to kind of the same recipe to deal with this Kansas State team, I figure. Should be an interesting game. I'm leaning the way of the Wildcats, though. I do like what Kansas State has bringing in, and I like this matchup here against Tulane. I think it works pretty well for Kansas State. They also get it at home. But Tulane, wouldn't surprise me if they keep this game closer than the odds makers predict. When you look elsewhere in conference play, I got 3 more games in orange. That's the game against Houston, Cincinnati. Look, you got to go on the road to play both those teams. It starts and ends your conference slate. Those are just 2 flat-out, very, very hard games. It would surprise me if Tulane won even one of those. And then you have that game in UCF at orange as well. UCF, the second year with Gus Malzahn as the head coach. But this is a UCF team that, well, yes, they lose Dylan Gabriel. They lose Jalen Robinson. A lot of other pieces leaving that team. But it's a UCF team that still has a lot of talent on it and can make a push for the American Athletic Championship game. Otherwise, you have a lot of games in yellow here. USF in South Florida, you probably could put that game in yellow-green if you wanted to, but it's in yellow because it's on the road. Same thing with Tulsa. That game is in yellow because it's on the road. That very well could be a game right there that decides who makes the conference, or not who makes the conference championship game, excuse me. That could be a game right there, Tulane-Tulsa, that decides who makes the postseason. Otherwise, there are a lot of chances for Tulane to pull off a slight upset at home. East Carolina is one there. Memphis is one. SMU is one. And if you want to talk about a big upset at home, hey, I've already talked about that UCF team there, that they are losing a lot. Maybe might not be as good in recent years, and they get them later in the season. Maybe Tulane can build some momentum. If they can beat Memphis, they can beat Tulsa on the road. They go into that UCF game with some momentum. This is going to be an interesting schedule for Tulane to watch. I do not expect another 2-10 year from last year. In fact, I like this team to make a bowl game, which is right where I have them at 6-6. I do think the wheels can fall off the bus again, and if that happens, I don't see this team doing any worse than 3-9. However, I can see this team doing really well. I can see this team pulling off a couple upsets this year and surprising some people. Maybe even being in contention for the American Athletic Championship game here later down the line when you go in and have to play games like UCF, SMU, Cincinnati. Maybe their only loss up to that point is to Kansas State and Houston. You're looking at a 7-2 team. And then maybe they go 7-5. I could even see 8-4 if you're willing to stretch a little bit for this team. But I got them at 6-6. Think it's going to be a bounce back year and a good year for the Green Wave. And that's going to do it for my preview on Tulane. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, everything like that. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please help support the channel if you are able. And remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.